Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In a large American city, the sun beat down on the windows of a luxurious bank, sparkling like the bulging pockets of its regular customers. Inside, a banker in a tailored suit, with a cold and haughty smile, scrutinized each person who crossed the threshold. When James Carter, an elegant and calm black man, entered the bank, the banker frowned. He pretended to ignore him, making him wait. Then, in a condescending tone, he declared, "Sir, we don't serve, well, certain types of people here." James, impassive, simply smiled. He took out his phone, did a quick check, and silently noted that his name appeared as the majority owner of the bank. The banker, unaware of his own impending humiliation, continued his contemptuous speech, certain of his power. But a few minutes later, the bank's management entered, and James, calmly and authoritatively, announced, "Sir, you have just refused to serve your boss." The banker's face flushed red. The employees and clients in the room watched, speechless, as this turn of events unfolded. Power and wealth are nothing compared to ignorance and racism, and karma never misses an opportunity to make its presence felt. James Carter entered the bank, his sure and calm step contrasting with the usual hustle and bustle of the customers. He observed the room carefully, noting the busy employees, the computer screens, and especially the head banker, Mr. Whitmore, a man with a hard stare and a fixed smile. As soon as James approached the main counter, Whitmore frowned and said sharply, "Hello, sir, I'm afraid we won't be able to serve you today." James raised an eyebrow, his calm but firm voice resonating. "Excuse me?" The banker looked away, uncomfortable, but persisted. "You understand, certain procedures, we have our criteria." The other customers began to notice the tension. Some whispered, others stared at Whitmore, intrigued by his strange behavior. James took out his phone, quickly consulted a few documents, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. He then placed the device on the counter and said, "I think you should review your criteria. I am James Carter, majority owner of this bank." Silence fell. The employees exchanged worried glances. Whitmore felt his face turn crimson, unable to utter a word. His arrogance had just crumbled in a fraction of a second. James, still calm, continued, "You just refused to serve your boss. Perhaps it's time to learn some respect." The customers present began to applaud softly. Whitmore tried to speak, but no words came out. He finally understood that his racism and arrogance had just cost him much more than dignity. He had just lost his authority and his honor. James turned to the employees and said with a smile, "Be kind to your customers, especially those who create your jobs." And with that simple sentence, he left the counter, leaving behind a humiliated banker and a life lesson etched in the memories of all those present. After Mr. Whitmore's public humiliation, James Carter did not stop there. He calmly walked to the main office, where the employees watched, still shocked. He placed his phone on the desk and explained, "Let me make something clear, I am the majority owner of this bank. Everything you see here is my investment, my work, and my responsibility." The employees, surprised but curious, listened attentively. Some whispered among themselves, shocked by the turn of events. James turned to Whitmore, whose jaw was clenched. "You see, respect isn't earned with a suit or a luxurious office. It's earned with dignity and humanity. Today, you failed at both." Then, with a firm gesture, he asked the employees to follow him for an emergency meeting. He explained, "Every customer must be treated with equality and respect. Without exception. Any discriminatory behavior will result in sanctions. Immediate. The bank must reflect the values I support: integrity, justice, and respect." Whitmore tried to protest, but James calmly interrupted him. "You have already demonstrated your attitude. I advise you to consider your future here." While James spoke, some employees began taking notes, inspired by his calm but firm authority. Others, like Whitmore, remained frozen, understanding that a radical change had just taken place. Before leaving the room, James cast one last glance at the employees. If you want this bank to thrive, start by respecting every person, regardless of their color, origin, or position. The rest will follow naturally. When James left the bank that day, he left behind a profoundly transformed institution, where racism and arrogance no longer had a place. Rumors about his ownership were already circulating among customers and staff, and the lesson of that day would stay with those who witnessed it for a long time. The next day, news of Mr. Whitmore's public humiliation was already circulating throughout the city. Regular customers and staff spoke in hushed tones, admiring James Carter's calm and authority. Whitmore, meanwhile, was summoned to the main office by James. The banker, his face still red with shame, tried to downplay the situation. "Mr. Carter, it was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to." James looked at him with quiet firmness. "You made a choice yesterday. You chose to discriminate against a customer. Today, that choice has consequences." It continues. Whitmore would be demoted to an administrative position without direct contact with customers. He should undergo mandatory training on equality and diversity. Each future discriminatory behavior would result in an immediate dismissal. The employees and customers who had witnessed the scene silently applauded the soundness of the decision. James added, "Respect and equality are not options. They are fundamental rules here." Over the weeks, the bank changed dramatically. Black customers, often ignored or mistreated before, were now warmly welcomed. Employees understood that racism no longer had a place and that the company thrived on inclusion and mutual respect. Whitmore, humiliated but forced to comply, slowly began to understand the importance of equality. Every day, he saw James treat all customers with dignity, reminding everyone that power and wealth meant nothing without humanity. James, for his part, remained discreet about his role as owner, letting the results speak for themselves. The lesson was clear: racism is always punished, and justice always finds its way, often in ways no one expects. A few months later, the bank was unrecognizable. Customers entered with confidence and smiles, greeted by motivated and respectful staff. The oppressive atmosphere of the past had disappeared, replaced by a feeling of fairness and inclusion. James Carter, discreet yet ever-present, observed the changes from afar. The employees had learned to treat every customer with respect, and overt racism had become unthinkable. Rumors about his role as owner continued to circulate, and Whitmore's lesson was now firmly etched in everyone's minds: arrogance and contempt always come at a price. Whitmore, however, had changed. Although the humiliation had been bitter, he began to understand that a true banker is not measured by wealth or power, but by the ability to treat every person with dignity. His attitude evolved, and little by little, he earned the respect of clients and colleagues, but this time, through merit, not position. James, for his part, knew that the real victory lay not in punishing Whitmore, but in transforming the bank and creating a fair and equitable environment. Customers from all walks of life now came for the services, but stayed for the respect and fairness they felt in every interaction. As James left the bank that day, he cast one last glance at the gleaming building, a slight smile playing on his lips. The message was clear: dignity, respect, and justice always triumph over racism and arrogance. And sometimes, karma reveals itself in the fairest and most unexpected way. The bank was no longer just a place for financial transactions. It had become a symbol of justice, a beacon for all those who believe in equality, and living proof that power comes with responsibility, and that justice always triumphs in the end.